Connor, and today I'm going to review a thing. Dr. Seuss is probably one of the best known children's book writers and artists to this day. His stories have been read to so many children over the past few years, and they're some of the best stories to tell when the kids go to sleep. Some of the best books that he's written are some classics known as The Cat in the Hat, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Horton Hears a Who, One Fish, Two Fish, and a whole bunch of other books. Dr. Seuss made a lot of money off these books, obviously, and I guess a better way to make money off of what he's created is by turning his books into movies. Some people didn't like that idea. To this day, there are only 4 books that have been turned into movies. 2 of them are animated and 2 of them are live action. The 2 animated films are Horton Hears a Who and The Lorax, but these came after the live action films, The Cat in the Hat and The Grinch. Now, all these films could have been animated, all these films could have been live action, but Horton Hears a Who and The Lorax were made into animation films for 2 reasons. One, because I guess it was a bit more easier at the time. You know, I don't really see anybody dressing up as Horton. And the second was because the live-action films didn't really do that well. In fact, they kind of pissed off a lot of people, but at the same time entertained a lot of people. It's amazing that these 2 books that children grew up with have been turned into what people call, how people say, garbage. Well, in other people's eyes. In my eyes, these films aren't really garbage. The Grinch is a classic holiday film that's played every year on ABC Freeform's 25 Days of Christmas. And The Cat in the Hat is just an attempt to turn a classic childhood story into something bigger. There are both positives and negatives to these films, but a lot of people focus on the negatives because they don't follow up with the true story that they first came from. Horton Hears a Who and The Lorax don't really share the same issues with what these 2 movies share, but they do kind of stir up some problems, seeing that they don't both catch the eye of the original reader, but they're not really a problem. The 2 live-action films seem to cause up a lot of problems. So, let's dive right in to see what the problem with these movies are and what the good parts of the movies are. I'm still sick. So before I start, let me just remind everybody that both The Grinch and The Cat in the Hat have had 30-minute television specials. And they have kept true to the story that they came from. And then some guy was like, hey, let's make these stories longer in movie forms and have Jim Carrey and Michael Myers play the 2 iconic characters, which is exactly what they've done. So let's first look at the first Dr. Seuss movie that was made, The Grinch. So Jim Carrey gets the honor to play the Grinch, and I'm not really sure that Jim Carrey was fully on board with it. He played the character just fine. The Grinch character in the movie is very hilarious, and it's because of Jim Carrey, because what he brings to the role, but I don't know if Jim Carrey would say it was his best role. I saw a bunch of interviews with Jim Carrey saying that he kind of begged the director to kind of cast somebody else, and how he didn't want to play the part because of the costume he had to wear and the makeup he had to go through. He put on that suit about like 100 times and had to go into makeup about 100 times to play this role, and it was kind of killing him. So I guess the negative about it is the costume. I mean, it's a pretty good costume. It's pretty convincing that this is a weird being, but it does look like a lot to get on, including the makeup. So the one thing I have to say about this movie is that it is very colorful and does say Christmas. I watch this film every year at Christmas and I enjoy watching it, but something that people kind of get a little pissed at and annoys them a little about this movie is the movie itself. The amount of length the film spans to. Like I said, The Grinch already has a television special, going at about 30 minutes, maybe even 25 minutes. This movie's 2 hours and 30 minutes long. So there's one problem. Notice that the book is also less than 100 pages. The Grinch story can be told in the matter of maybe 10 minutes, and they take about 2 hours to actually get to the story. Literally, the whole plot of the movie is at the end. The part where he steals Christmas is all at the end. The rest of the 2 hours is just focusing on his backstory, why he hates Christmas and all the people around him and his childhood. And then they have this like holiday cheermeister thing, a big party and stuff that has to get him even more aggravated about Christmas. And we gotta focus on these characters and these characters, and it's a lot for people. The background characters that do all the flipping in the beginning of the movie are apparently circus acrobats, which is pretty awesome. The set design is really cool, the music's pretty cool, and it is funny. But I think what people get most angry about is the fact that it takes so long to get to the point of the story. So this movie wasn't as panned as it was. Some people don't like it, but there's a big majority of people that look forward to watching it every year when it's on the TV. But some people also prefer the 30-minute special when it comes on. Some people prefer the 2-hour and 20-minute. Whatever you prefer, I like this movie, and it's got a nice moral to it as well. They slip in a moral with these Dr. Seuss live-action films, and the moral in this one was, it's not all about what you get, all the prizes you get, all the competitions. As long as you're together, that's what Christmas is. Yeah, that's the whole point behind the film, and I think it's pretty cool. So really, The Grinch wasn't the movie that kind of got people off their seats, aggravated because of their childhood being turned into a big mess. It's The Cat in the Hat that did that. Now, before we say anything, I do want to say that this movie is funny. There are only a few things I like about this movie. I like the humor in it, I like the set designs, and I like the characters. That is it. The plot is a bit weak, but other than that, everything that I just stated that I like is what I like about the film. So let's just get that out of the way. A lot of people do not like this movie. In fact, it's got a very low rating. In fact, this is the movie that got the Seuss Company's attention to stop production on any further live-action movies. So, unlike The Grinch, this movie isn't 2 hours and 30 minutes long. It's actually about an hour and 30 minutes, maybe an hour and 20, but it does keep to the story's original plot very quickly. We get to the cat's arrival about 20 minutes in, and the story stays true to where it originally came from, but there are a few things that people don't like about this film. For one thing, Michael Myers does a good job playing the cat. He is very goofy, but the cat's personality is a bit too goofy in this film, and they mostly saw the cat being the serious goofy guy. Like, he still was kind of goofy and mischief, but in the 30-minute special, and even in the book, he was a bit more intelligent than how this cat would be in this film. And while we're on the topic of the cat, his costume isn't as great as Jim Carrey's was. In fact, in this movie, you can even see where the cutout for the face is, which is now bothering me. It just bothers me a lot. The characters in this film are pretty good. The only characters in the book were, the cat, the kids. We got the mom, but no face. We had the fish with thing 1 and thing 2. Wow, that's frightening. That's very frightening. And we also got the neighbor that's trying to send the boy to military school and hit on the mom. The character that was in the lost pages of The Cat in the Hat. You know what I'm talking about. And there's also that lost story about the lock on the red box getting lost and the kids and the cat trying to go around finding it before his world mixes up with the real world. It stays true to the story and all. Alright, so other than all that stuff, there is one thing that seems to get on a lot of people's nerves, especially the parents. This aggravates the parents higher than maybe their kids drawing on the wall, and that's the fact that this movie isn't rated PG-13. You're probably sitting there thinking, what, The Cat in the Hat rated PG-13? That's impossible, it's a children's book. It is a children's book. And this should be a children's movie. But it's got a lot of adult humor in it. I don't mind children's content involving a little humor for the adults, but if it's at a right pace. There is a lot of things in this movie that can make this film get rated PG-13, maybe even R, because I don't think this is a very safe film for kids. Maybe a few scenes, but half of the whole movie I do not think is appropriate for a young age. There are so many dirty jokes about the cat wanting to do something to the mom. The cat literally swears in a few scenes. He spells out the word, another word for poop. And he almost gets the kid to say the word, which is great. They literally bleep out a curse word in the kitchen scene. There is just a lot of adult humor in this movie that I don't think kids would understand. I never really understood it or noticed it, which I guess is what the producer's intentions were when putting this content in, because if a kid sees something he doesn't understand, they're just going to fly by it and just watch the cat. But, I mean, it's not right. Other than that, like I said, the humor in this movie is very creative. I laugh every time I watch it. A lot of people don't like the humor, and in fact even hate this movie, but I can find a little positives in this film, and it does look like that everybody is trying, but this movie got panned so badly. And it just destroyed the Dr. Seuss industry for live action films. That's now why there are animated films. In fact, because of these two films, they're now remaking The Grinch and Cat in the Hat into CGI films. We're gonna see how that turns out, I guess. Overall, I seem to like these films. I don't know if majority of the world would agree with me seeing that these two films were panned, but I could find some humor in them. I like the set designs. I like the characters. I think they're alright. They're not great, they're not bad, but they're alright. So that's what I think about the two Dr. Seuss live-action films. As for the two animated live-action films, I've only seen one. And it was very strange. So that's what I think about all this, but now I want to hear what you people think. Have you ever seen these two live-action Dr. Seuss films? What do you think is better, these two live-action films or the books? Because that's an argument a lot of people have. Also, seeing that these two films are going to be remade into animated films, how do you think it will turn out? Do you think they'll be the exact same, or do you think they'll be different? Do you agree or disagree with anything that I said in this video? Tell me in the comments, and also leave me your suggestions for whatever movie, TV show, or random thing you want me to talk about next. Thanks for watching The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.
Somebody's fabulous!